I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm very grateful for your support, the endorsements and the work that have been exhibited on this stage today. To have the opening comments from my good friend, Representative David Simpson from Longview. David and I met in 2007. It was a camaraderie, you know that. If you've been in this grassroots movement, you feel like we're family. And though David is from the Longview area, we have shared a fellowship over the course of the last 7 years working together. Dr. Paul has been my political mentor since the early 90s, and I am grateful to have grown up under his leadership and tutelage. I often say that he was giving me reading lists long before he ever gave one to Rudy Giuliani. This is an important race, and it's one that I started looking at in early 2011. I believe that it was during a conversation with David Simpson in the gallery of the House chamber in early 2011 when he said, "Debra, we need you in office. We need you. Your voice is an important one, and I need some help up here." And I said, "David, Susan Combs is thinking about running for the lieutenant governor. Would it be of help to the work that we need to get done if I were to sit in the Comptroller's office?" See, what many people in Texas don't quite understand is that we have a weak governor, and we've all heard that, haven't we? Texas constitutionally has a weak governor. If you look in our Constitution, there are a number of individuals that serve in the executive branch of the state of Texas. We are, after all, a republic. We are organized in much the same way that the federal government is. We have an executive branch, we have a legislative branch, and we have a judicial branch in this state. And the governor and the attorney general and the comptroller are part of that executive branch. It is the comptroller that is the chief financial officer of the state of Texas. It is the comptroller who estimates how much revenue the legislature has to spend based on the current tax and fee structure in the state. It is the comptroller who certifies that that budget is balanced. It is the comptroller who invests the assets, many of the assets of the state of Texas. It is the comptroller who collects those taxes. It's an important office, and it's one that we are this close to being able to win. This close. I said to David Simpson and to Dr. Paul that in addition to them talking about the ideas of liberty, I wanted to be sure that you were encouraged today, because many of us in this room have fought many political battles, and I dare say we've lost a lot more than we've won. This is not just about electoral politics, it is about advancing ideas, but by golly, we better start to win some races. And 6 months ago, I had a 10-point lead in this race, and the pundits couldn't understand it. It rocked Austin. They had no idea how it was possible that someone that ran 4 years ago, that hasn't been on a ballot since then, had as much support as several of the men that were already in statewide office. How could that be? Well, it could be because we have continued to work, because I have continued to work, and because you have continued to work. There's an Inside Austin political online reporting service called the Quorum Report, and the Quorum Report noted that when Debra Medina says we need people in Austin at a committee hearing, there's standing room only. And I think Harvey Kronberg said nobody remembers us having to open overflow space for a Ways and Means committee hearing until Debra Medina says, come to Austin. And all of a sudden, there's standing room only and overflow space has to be opened. We continued to work. So that 10-point lead put us in a good position to be able to run this race. But it's not going to carry us over the finish line if we don't do some really hard work. The way that this race is stacking up is you are going to see, and I think you already are here in the Houston area, television commercials, you are going to see millions of dollars spent advocating mediocrity. Millions on mediocrity. Your choice is to pick millions for mediocrity or Medina. That's what it boils down to. And I have had interviews with virtually every large newspaper in this state with their editorial boards, talking to them about the ideas of Comptroller. And one of those editors said to me, but Debra, really, at the end of the day, there's not much difference between you four candidates, is there? And I said, well, I will give you that we're all pro-gun, and we're all pro-life, and we're all Republican. But I think the similarity stops there. The other three candidates, the three career politicians in this race, are big government, big spending Republicans. Absolutely big government, big spending. For those of you that follow economic thought, Keynesian economists. My staff laughed. They said the editor's eyes rolled back and everybody went, Keynesian economists, what's that? I'm not that person. I am a limited government, low spending Austrian economist. So where are we in Texas? 14th largest economy in the world. Very large state, lots of natural resources, tremendous diversity in the people of our state. You've heard me say before, the wealth of a society is in its people. I point to Japan and I point to Africa and I say it is people that make us rich. It is people that make us prosperous. Why is prosperity important? Because those societies that are prosperous enjoy a higher standard of living. They enjoy a better education system, a better healthcare system, a better access to food than other impoverished societies do. It's important that we understand what's the difference between those societies that prosper and those that are impoverished. We often talk about Texas being free and sovereign, but we are ignoring some very real findings and trends. The state of Texas has the second highest local debt burden in the country per capita. The second highest, $240 billion of debt. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the state of Texas economy is pretty robust right now. If you can't pay your bills when money is coming in hand over fist, the state of Texas is not paying its bills, and money is coming in hand over fist. We scream at Washington, D.C., for putting us in such great debt. And yet today, when we're in the midst of a very prosperous Texas, our elected officials are driving us into debt, and we're letting them. We're letting them. We can arrest this slide if we can put a liberty-minded candidate in the executive branch of the government of the state of Texas. And while I will do my level best to work and work well with the Republican nominees, with the Republican candidates that are going to be on that ticket. With all due respect to them, there is not one other candidate on a statewide ballot that fights as hard or as consistently for these ideas as I do. Not one. If we want a voice, a constant, consistent, compassionate voice advocating for the ideas of freedom, then we have got to win this race. I have got to win this race. Now, the pundits said I didn't have a chance, and the statewide polling came out and gave me a 10-point lead. Today, the speculation is Debra Medina is in a runoff for Comptroller, but who else is in it with her is anybody's guess. I'm going to tell you that I don't necessarily believe that that is true. The only way I get into that race in a runoff is if you vote and you take 10 or 20 people with you to vote as well. You have got to work. These rallies are wonderful. They are terrific. We feel good when we're here. We encourage one another. But we have got to work. And I can tell you that my staff, these ladies and men who have stepped up to work on this campaign, says, I can't believe it. I call and I call. People say, I want to volunteer. And you say, will you? And they say, well, no, not that. Nope, can't do that. Nope, can't do that. We've got 2 weeks. We did this event today for a reason. Early voting starts Tuesday. 50% of the vote will be cast during early voting. We need your help. I can't buy it. I wouldn't if I could. We've got to care enough about our state and enough about our country that we will stand up and do the work necessary to elect righteous men and women to office. Webster said, if we fail to secure the blessings of a free republic, it is because we have not elected people of character to office. It is because the voters have failed to elect people of character into office. It is not because the politicians were politicians. Politicians are going to be politicians. It's your job to vote for people of character and put them in office. And it is your job to bring home those who have served their time. Our founders never intended people to make a lifetime tenure of serving in public office. I often hear that, you know, if we put term limits in place, we would bring home good people. And I say, I hope that's right. We send good, honest people into office, and we ought to bring good, honest people home from service. We do not send into harm's way in perpetuity our soldiers, our police officers, or even the deacons of our church. We understand there's a time to serve and there's a time to rest. We cannot continue to elect time and time again to send into the battle of the political fray year after year after year the same people and expect that we're going to enjoy a free, prosperous republic. It is not going to happen. As we have fought this battle, I started working in grassroots politics in 1992. I had 2 young children. My family, I think, is still here today. Where are y'all? I can't see. My daughter Janice with our grandbaby Hope is in the back, and her husband Chris is over here, and Jacob and Brienne are over here, and Noe is sitting down back there. My kids were little when I started working on this. They've grown up listening to these ideas. We've talked about them at dinner. We sat down as a family and we had dinner together every night and we talked about the ideas of freedom. And as my platform grew and I began to reach beyond my community and beyond my county and beyond my Senate district to a platform that went across the state of Texas, and you need to know that there aren't just people from the Houston area today. There are people here from Fredericksburg and Bastrop County and Travis County and Jefferson County and Orange County and Tarrant County. There are people from all over the state of Texas who drove in here, and that happens all around the state every time we travel. My greatest fear was, how do we not become, or maybe not a fear, a question, how do we not become that thing we're fighting against? I've said, you know, I don't want to go to Austin and serve in public office and walk into my house and have my family say, "Who are you? We never knew you." And how often do we see that? We send people into office and then we wonder, how are you voting? Why are you voting like that? Politics is corrupting. It is a corrupting influence, and we have got to do better jobs as voters to encourage people to go and serve a time and come home. I will push hard from the executive branch of Texas for limited constitutional government, for one that really recognizes, not just in word but in deed, that your life is yours to live. Your family is yours to raise. Your business is yours to run. And I will lead on the idea of major tax reform. The property tax system in Texas is broken. And even if it wasn't, if we deprive ourselves of private property ownership, we are depriving ourselves of freedom and prosperity. %60 of the central appraisal districts in the state of Texas failed an audit by the Comptroller's office on initial review. The Comptroller was charged by the legislature with reviewing the central appraisal districts in the state, and they audited half of them 1 year and 60% failed, and they audited the other half the next year. You would think that if you knew a test was coming, you would do your job better. And the second year, the other half would have gotten it together and be doing it right. No, 76% failed the second year. And I'm told by many in Austin they're getting better, as though that should give me comfort. We've had the property tax system in its current form in Texas for well over 40 years. If you ain't got it right and 60% of you are failing after 40 years, you're not going to perfect it. It is a broken system because government manipulates both factors of the product property tax. They manipulate the value of the property and they manipulate the rate that they charge. It is a broken system and it deprives us of private property ownership. It has got to go. But this conversation about tax needs to be looked at, I believe, in a little bit different light, because we are using tax in Texas today as carrot and stick. We are using tax as a behavior modification tool. We are using tax as reward and punishment. That is not what tax should be for a free people. Tax is supposed to be our fair share of the cost of the government service that we demand. You want a city police force? Then you need to pay for a city police force, and all of you need to contribute to that. All of us need to be carrying that burden. But to say to you who has some business that we want to encourage, you don't have to pay the burden, doesn't require the spending to go down. It just means the rest of you have to pay a little bit more. That is wealth distribution in its finest form. And we do it in Texas every day of the week in Austin. Because we do not have, bless David Simpson's heart, he was not a very good freshman. He was told repeatedly, I think, David, you call me if I'm messing this up, that freshmen were not to be at the back mic of the House of Representatives arguing for or against legislation. David carried the water for limited government ideas. He was the only one who consistently stepped up to that microphone and said, that's a bad idea and this is why. We have got to have people who can articulate the ideas of freedom and leadership in Texas. And there are too few of us who are able to do that today and who have the courage to do it consistently. And I am prayerfully grateful for David's leadership in that regard. There are more coming. David and I both worked under the counsel of a wise parliamentarian from San Antonio, Texas, and he said in every audience there is 20% on this end and 20% on that end, and there's 60% in the mushy middle. And that 60% can be easily swayed one way or the other. If we had just a few more strong voices of liberty, strong, compassionate, but loud voices of liberty, we pull that 60. There are a bunch of people that have the rhetoric, they just don't have the courage, and we need to give them some spine. We need to give them some spine. I do not believe for a minute that there is a single person who runs for elected office who wants to do harm to their community or their state. People run for office because they want to see a brighter Texas future. They want to serve. But so often their ideas about what makes government, what makes society prosper, and what hurts it are wrong. And we have to be able to go in and help them understand what's good policy and what's bad policy. The Comptroller needs to be a better advocate for sound fiscal policy. Today, the Comptroller goes before the legislature and talks numbers and just numbers for the immediate future. The Comptroller does not currently articulate this policy will move us back towards a free market or this one will move us farther away. We have got to have a Comptroller that will lead on those ideas. Today, tax collection has become a revenue effort. Tax collection has become vindictive and punitive. The job of the tax collector is not to be the revenue agent. That's the job of the legislature to decide what that burden is going to be. The job of the tax collector is to collect what is due and only what is due. We have got to have somebody that will very clearly say, this is what the law says, this is how it's going to be enforced, and it's going to be enforced that way for everybody. Fairness, justice, transparency, accountability. I need your help. We can get it done. We've got 2 weeks. I hope you have signed up to help. The staff has got a list. I see it back there on the wall. These are the precincts where they're the heaviest voting turnout during early voting. We need you there. We need somebody there making sure there are Medina signs in the ground at those polling locations. We need somebody there handing out cards to influence those voters. If there's a hole on that chart, you can help. An hour, 2 hours, a couple of times during early voting will make a huge difference. I appreciate you being here today. I hope you've been encouraged. I want to let you know that this is a winnable race. I will as I have said to you before, I give you my word that I will work to earn your respect and to do a good job for you and the state of Texas every day that I serve. Thank you so much.